Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. All right, welcome to KIMEcast. I'm Tony Mikla, Aaron Crouch. We're here with Rob Turbin today. Excited to have you, Rob.
What's up, you guys?
Yes, sir.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome.
Everybody watching.
Yeah.
You know.
So Rob's had a quite an NFL career with a few different teams, so we're going to hear about that tonight and some of his experiences and what he's gone through as an athlete. This would be great, but Rob does so much more than just an athlete, so I'm excited to hear about what he's doing as well. He's got a football academy. I know he's got a great foundation that gives back. He runs camps and developmental programs for all kinds of youth and people around the world, for that matter. So it's really cool to have you here. Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. I was excited for tonight. I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you guys.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah,
It'll be fun.
All right, so first off, beer of the night to get things started here a little bit.
Yeah, we're going off with Offshoot Brewery. It's Unwind Hoppy Pills. So they're out of Placentia, California, which is near the Fullerton area. Haven't had this one actually, and I like it a lot. So
Yeah,
this would be a nice one to kick the episode off with. So
I'm a Pilsner guy. You like Pilsner as well, or no?
You know what? I'm not too familiar with like beers.
what they are, just what they taste like.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I know what beer is, but what they taste like.
Not the connoisseur.
Yeah, like the all the different IPAs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of those type of people. I'm down to try almost anything, and so this one tastes pretty good.
There we go.
Like a light
Easy
beer,
going.
Yeah.
Best type.
It's
There we
chill.
go. I dig it.
I'd have these at the barbecue, or watching some Sunday night football or something like that.
There we
They
go.
passed the test then. That's right then and there. Like if you can have it in a casual setting and you enjoy
I like the
yourself.
name of it too, Unwind.
Yeah,
it's like
Unwind.
It's good.
good
Beach
day
and
at work.
everything. Heck
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, the picture is catchy.
I know.
that is catchy.
Since we can't.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a darker version of like Johnny Bravo with black hair.
It does.
Doesn't he look like that? Look at this. Look at this guy.
Heck yeah.
Can the camera see this?
Yeah.
Johnny Bravo.
zoom in on that.
He's chilling. It's like his
Big Fawn's hair.
might be like his cousin or something like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
It's real good.
Getting kind of red out there.
I know, but maybe a little too much sun.
Yeah,
Right?
right. No doubt. So we've been working together for quite some time now. It's been a little over 1 year, almost 1.5. It's been an awesome time working with you and very educational, to be honest with you, from my end. And yes, about your football career and everything you've gone through, and certainly even deeper about the things you do for the community you came from, the community you're in right now. And like Tone said, I'd love to get to that point. But you have a unique story being in the league and being in football that long, where you've experienced plenty of injuries and plenty of setbacks in your playing career, that I think people can learn from in a unique way of making certain decisions on who's in their corner, so to speak, and how you vetted out professionals to get what you needed from them to get to the places you're at. But I think from that we have to obviously hear your story on a little bit of where you came from, where you went, and kind of a little bit about your career first. So
Yeah. Well, first I want to express my gratitude really to the both of you, and like you mentioned, we've been working one-on-one together for a little over a year now, and in some, I guess, uncomfortable situations, obviously dealing with the business of the league and being a free agent, but willing to take the time out of your schedule to be consistent with me and to always make sure that I'm prepared and ready to go. Last season I didn't get signed until literally the last week, of the season.
Yeah.
And
it didn't happen often.
no, my agent at the time he called it a miracle.
yeah, it was amazing.
He's talking to me on the phone. He says, I'll never say never again. I'll never say never again. But a lot of guys would have checked out. Aaron and I had those conversations, like maybe we should just essentially throw in the towel, and then we give each other this kind of look like, No. We'll finish it out.
Yep.
I'm a finisher. He's a finisher, and that's why we have such a great relationship. Man, my sports history is long. I started playing sports at the age of 8. Baseball was my first love. I know you're a big baseball guy, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so naturally my favorite team was the Oakland A's, and my favorite player of all time is Ricky Henderson, and that was
course.
Good choice. Those are good choices.
Great choice.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I kind of modeled my game after that. I wanted to bunt. I wanted to, bat first. I wanted to bunt, get on base, steal second.
Yep.
Still third.
Steal all the bags.
It was easier back in those days, Not as much.
But when you had thighs like him.
Right. Well, I wish. I wasn't quite built that way, but I did have the speed though.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I was pretty confident in that. Then a basketball. The following year, got into my hands, and I started to, watch Jordan and Kobe. Some of my all-time favorite players, and then I started to play football at the age of 10, and it was kind of weird how I started playing because at the time I was a fourth grader, and I lived right down the street from this park. It was called Irvington Park. Literally, like, I lived on one corner, and on the other corner, across the street, there's Irvington Park. It's a park. Go there. You swung on the swings and all this kind of stuff. You played on the basketball courts, but there was always something going on Saturdays, and it was like a crowd of people, and there was barbecues and all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, I'm just a fourth grader, so I'm not going to go up there by myself, to see what's going on. I never really paid it any attention, but you'd hear people cheering and, cheerleaders doing like routines and stuff like that. I'm like, what the heck's going on up there?
So, I must find out.
Yeah, so I go to school and I remember, I went to class, and one of my buddies, his name is Justin Ramos. We've known each other since kindergarten, still really good friends to this day. And, we started talking about Irvington Park. He says, yeah, it's a football league going on up there. And I'm like, really? Like, I want to play, how can I play, And he's like, oh, you got to do all this sign up and stuff like that. It's too late now. The season's already started. So the following year, his parents really were the ones who kind of got all the stuff for me, the paperwork and everything like that. They helped me get set up. So I started playing football when I was 10 years old. I remember we had to do a tryout back in that day. I had to do a tryout. It was at Kennedy High School. And, even from the very beginning of my football story, I was the underdog. I felt like I was always kind of looked over. Mm-hmm. And from the start, I had to have this underdog mentality because, here we are, we're doing this tryout. It's me and maybe maybe 25 to 30 other kids, in this tryout. And then after the tryout, there's a draft. And so
that's tough at that age. That's
they do a draft. It's like a draft, and it's the teams, and it's like the teams are like the actual NFL. So you have the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco. It wasn't like the Fremont Niners. They tried to make it like official, So you're trying out because all these coaches are there. They're scouting you to see, hey, I think I'm going to pick that player first in the draft. And the draft was just like the league. It's like the team who was the worst team last year got to pick first in the draft.
This is the Pee Wee Combine.
This is popcorn. Seriously.
Stopwatches, everything.
Seriously, that's what it was. It was super fun, and I felt like I was the best. Mm-hmm. Similarly to like the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. Where if I didn't have the highest vertical, I jumped to 36, Mm-hmm. I didn't have the longest broad jumped, I think it was a 10 flat. I didn't have the fastest 40, but I ran a 4.44, mm-hmm. which is pretty fast for a guy who's 225.
Yeah.
And
don't want to get in the way of you.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I essentially don't think any of these running backs are better than me, but going back, so we do the tryout, we have the draft. The first two teams that have picks in the draft are the Dallas Cowboys, mm-hmm. number 1, and the Buffalo Bills, number 2, and I forget who was 3. So the Cowboys are up first, and I remember seeing the coaches because they got their Cowboy shirts on. I remember seeing them at the combine. And they ended up picking another kid, another running back at that, you know, over me, you know.
I know the origin story.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
you hate the Cowboys. I know. This is so great.
Maybe it does stem from Atlanta because I've never been a fan of Emmitt Smith or any of those guys. I like Michael Irvin and I like Deion Sanders, but other than that, I can't think of any other Cowboys that I've actually been fans of. Seriously. But and then I get picked second by the Bills. Joe Shammy was my first football coach ever, and I remember thinking, I was like, man, like I can't believe this, like, you know, like I looked like I wanted to be number one, you know, and so I had like a chip on my shoulder, and I was young too. I've always been like, for whatever reason, because my birthday's in December, like I've always been like the youngest kid in the class, you know. I went through puberty later than everybody else, you know what I mean? Like everybody's growing up faster than me, you know, but so, you know, Joe and the Bills picked me, and here I am 10 years old. So the league was divided, you know, you had your younger division, your older division. 8 to 12 was the younger division. 12 to, I think it was 14. You were in the older division, you know, and you could play like in Pop Warner as a freshman in high school if you wanted, like if you felt like you were too small, I guess. But it was like, if you're in like, come on, like you're in high school now, you know, like it's over, you know, like let's advance, you know. But some kids would do it, and you know, whatever. But and if you're 12, it, you know, depending on your weight, was, you know, older, younger, whatever. And coach, he told me, says, you know, I've never had a 10-year-old running back. Now, he was an older gentleman. This guy was already in his 50s, you know, and he'd been coaching Pop Warner for a lot of years, you know, like 20, you know, like that's a lot for Pop Warner. It's
a long time.
Yeah, you know, he's been around a long time.
Yeah.
And
he's a 10-year Pop Warner coach.
Yeah, you know, he's like, all my running backs have been 11 or 12 because you're a little older. Like 1 year makes a difference in like your size
at
and
that
strength,
age, yeah.
You know, and I'm like, Coach, I want to be around. My favorite player is Barry Sanders, so of all time. And so even when I started playing football, I'm like, you know, I'm going to be the next Barry Sanders. Yes. I want to. He's like, okay, you know, I'll try you at running back as a 10-year-old. You know, I believe to this day I was his best player ever. I'll tell you one quick story.
Best steal draft pick you ever got.
I feel it. You know, I feel like I was I had a really good 10-year-old year. You know,
breakout season.
Yeah. So I remember we were picking numbers. All right, my first year. So Coach Joe, he goes, "What number do you want to wear?" And I'm like, "I want to wear number 33." You know, 33 was like, I'm like, it's a good number. You know, he's like, why do you want to wear number 33? And I said, well, I want to be the first player ever to wear number 33 and make it to the Hall of Fame. And he laughed at me, you know? And I couldn't understand it. Like, I was like, what is, like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 10, but I'm serious. Like,
Russian dreams are your first round pick.
Like,
man.
I want to go to the NFL. I want to be number 33. I want to make the Hall of Fame. No running back in the history has ever made it to the Hall of Fame with the number 33. Now, I think he was laughing. Well, I know he was laughing because I didn't know my history well enough at that time. Obviously, you got like Tony Dorsett, a cowboy. You know, like, you know,
strikes
like,
again.
God, come on, man. And so he says, you know what? I'm going to have you wear number 40. And I'm thinking to myself, number 40. Now, mind you, I'm a 49er fan. So the first person that comes to mind, if you guys can remember, was William Floyd. And I'm like, number 40, first of all, that's a fullback number. William Floyd played fullback.
Yeah.
You know, you never saw any running backs really wearing 40 like that. You know, it's like 40, like you gotta be blocking people. Like, what is this? And he says, he asked me, he says, do you know who Gale Sayers is? And I'm like, nope, I have no idea. You know, he's like, he's a famous running back for the Chicago Bears. And I said, Coach, I think you're mistaken. I think you're talking about Walter Payton. Walter Payton was 32. He laughs again. He goes, you know, you got to go back further. He says, go do your research. I don't even think Google was around at the time. I don't even know. But he's do your research before Walter. there was Gale Sayers. You run like him. And I used to run like, before I ran track and actually like learned how to like run with, I used to run like head all the way back, like chest out,
Huge
like
target.
just you know what I mean? Like, and I guess he ran similarly because he was tall, long-legged or whatever. So anyway, that's how I got started,
Nice.
playing ball. And you go through your Pop Warner years, and high school was such an incredible time, probably the favorite, portion of my football life was the 4 years I played high school and really the 2 years that I was on varsity. Those are really special times in your junior and senior year before you end up graduating. And those are friends that I'm still friends with to this day. And so
And you just played varsity as a junior and senior.
yeah, I was on the freshman team, and it's a funny story, about I was young. So when I was a sophomore, they wanted me to play varsity. Our starting quarterback, Justin, who I mentioned earlier, so we ended up going to Irvington together, and we were together our freshman year. He was our quarterback, and our class, we knew we were going to be special. We were like, this is going to be a special class. Irvington's never done anything, historically in football. And we were really determined to change that. Like everybody was like on the same page. Like, we're going to turn this thing around. We're going to win. We're going to be great, and it was a real blessing, to be in that time with those people. And so JT, we have a great freshman year. Sophomore year comes around. JT goes to varsity. Justin, we call him
Broke
JT.
up the chemistry.
He goes to varsity, right? And so I get invited to varsity, and another guy gets invited to varsity. His name is Tyler Broom. Really, really special player. And Tyler says, you know what? I'm going to stay at JV, and granted, varsity needed a quarterback. And so, it was my opportunity to make a decision, and my decision didn't even matter because I was only 14 going into the season still. And I don't turn 15 until December, and the season's over.
Yeah.
By then, So legally, I wasn't even allowed to play varsity.
Gotcha.
wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, because I was a 14-year-old.
Gotcha.
And so I end up staying at JV, but we end up going to varsity the following year as a junior and reconnecting with JT and all of our original freshman team.
Nice.
We go to the state championship that year. We end up losing to Los Lomas, but we got an opportunity to play in the Coliseum where the Raiders play.
Sweet, yeah.
And God, there's so many plays that I can think of in my mind that you hit it like a sensitive spot because we lost that game by a touchdown, and I'm thinking about all the plays that happened in that game. But you go through as an athlete, so young, and you feel invincible. Like I never got hurt in high school or any time before that. Nothing serious.
Sure.
You might sprain an ankle, walk it off, get stepped on or whatever. I never got any real stingers, but you take a couple hits where it's like, whew, you shake it off, and I think I missed one game out of the 4 years that I played high school. It was like an oblique. Like, I never even knew what that was. Like,
Something on your side.
Yeah, it was like
something over here can't let you run.
I couldn't run.
Yeah.
I couldn't run.
So you swing your arm this way. You're like, why?
Yeah, and I couldn't understand it. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what is this? Have to do with my legs? Like, I can't run. So I missed one game because of that, but that was it. And so I get a scholarship, go to college, I pick Utah State. I originally wanted to go to Boise, but they ended up pulling their scholarship for another running back who actually ended up being drafted the same year I got drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and had a really great career. I can't think of his name right now, but I was getting recruited. I played both sides of the ball, so teams wanted me to play. Schools wanted me. I guess so used to saying teams because of the pro, but
Sure, yeah.
Schools at the college level wanted me to play defense, and I was a pretty good defensive player. But my dream from the beginning was to be a running back. I mean, I wanted to be Barry Sanders. That's who I wanted to be.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so I said, you know, I want to go to Utah State. Utah State, way back, once upon a time, was a good school, good team, good football team. Then, for a long time, like over the past 30 years, I mean, they've just been in this drought. I mean, they just weren't good, you know. And I'm like, I like that challenge right there. Now, normally kids, they go to I guess a lesser of a school because they feel like it gives them an opportunity to play earlier.
Sure.
That wasn't my mindset. I mean, I had to redshirt my first year, my freshman year. Granted, it was because of an injury, but even in my second year, I didn't end up getting a starting job until my third year there. So, but I liked the aspect of a team that had this terrible. It reminded me of my high school because here we were when we came in as freshmen.
Right.
Irvington had nothing.
Yeah.
Like in the history of the school, football wise, nothing. No scholarships, no playoffs, no nothing. And our class came in, and boom, we completely flipped it. Went to the state championship, went to the semis. Our senior year, which hurts even worse than this. Championship game.
I feel like that was coming.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, and so I'm like Utah State, you know, and so I ended up going there. You know, long story short, you know, we took it. It took until my last year, but in 2011, I got there in 2007. 2011, we go to our first bowl game in 30 years of the school's history. You know, so, but I hit some adversity early there.
That's awesome, man. Though.
Yeah.
What a tremendous challenge. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you said that when you said about your freshman year in high school, I was like, man, that's early to have that vision and that team collaboration, you know. And then to remember leaving it or questioning that's cool. And then to hear it again,
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. Just being part of a team, part of a unit.
Yeah.
And putting the team first. You know, you hear about that all the time and by coaches in sports, but to hear at that age as an athlete.
I was really fortunate, lucky to have the type of coaches that I had at an early age.
Yeah.
And I'll get into my injuries in a bit, but you kind of hit something for me. When I was everything was about the team, you know, from start to finish. When I was a sophomore, and my sophomore year was the deciding year for me, saying, you know what, it's going to be football. Because I was torn. I loved baseball, but I stopped playing after my 8th grade year. That was my last year playing baseball. And I was so torn with basketball. Basketball, I still love basketball. That's why I do the charity basketball event with the alumni every year. But my sister played basketball, and she passed away when I was 5 or 6. And you know, I don't know whether or not it was her dream or not. I think I might have been too young to understand that, but I just know that she played, and I know that she was really good, good enough to beat the boys. And because of that, it was you know, I want to be a basketball player in representation of my oldest sister. But something gravitated me towards the game of football, and I'll never forget. It was my JV year. We're playing against American High School. And at that time, that year, American High School was probably the second worst team in the division. Mission High School was the worst. They were always terrible. Always. You playing Mission, I was you knew you were going to. They were going 0-10 every year. Maybe 1-9. And so we lose this game against American, second to last game of the year, you know. And now we lose this game. We're not even going to be 500 for the year, you know. And I cared so much about it. I remember after the game, going into the locker room, and I was fortunate to be able to be in you know, leadership positions, captain, being voted captain, stuff. All that kind of stuff meant a lot to me because I held myself to such a high standard. I held everybody else to the same, and it showed in my work ethic and everything. And I just remember just going off on everybody, You know, I can't believe we just lost this game. Everybody needs to lock in. This off-season, work out, do extra work because we can never lose a game like this ever again. I was pissed. Like, I was like, the eyes were tearing up, you know. And one of my good friends at the time, his name was Rashad Miller. Also someone I've known since kindergarten, somebody that I still keep in contact with. And he was like he was really my basketball friend. Like, he played football, but really, like, our connection came on the basketball court, you know. And I'm looking at Rashad. Rashad's like, man, calm down, man. And I looked at him. I'm like, man, fuck basketball. All right, I'm not playing basketball next year. The only thing I want to do is train and get ready for next. And I meant it. I was like, all I want to do is train and get ready for next football season. And I meant that. And it was like, that's when I knew. It was like, no, basketball didn't matter. Baseball, like, no other, like, goal or whatever that I was, when I was thinking about it didn't matter. It was like ball. It was like, boom, I know it. So anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but I'm a storyteller.
I think it's important.
I'm a storyteller. You know, I feel like there's a lot of stories, and
I tell people this all the time, and during the just some random free time that I have, which is actually quite rare. I'm not sure how it happened, but I watched The Last Dance, and you know, you see Michael Jordan's story. Then I watched like Garth Brooks documentary with my wife, and I watched like something else too. But every single one of these examples were like incredible performers at whatever specialty it was, or whatever field of performance it was. But I noticed that every single one of them was kind of crazy in their own right, but crazy for being the absolute best and like just parting the water and saying like, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And there's nothing getting in my way. Like that determines someone that's going to do something pretty great. Yeah. You know, is that you can't just be wishy-washy about your commitment level. No, you can't be wishy-washy about, you know, like what you want. Like, you have to know what you want, and you have to get after it. So I think that's an important thing for people to hear from that story.
100%. I tell the kids at my camp, it's like, you know, what does it take to be great? I said, well, first of all, if you want to be great at anything, you got to know what that is. It's like, if you want to be successful at anything, well, you can't be successful if you don't know what it is. And a lot of times, especially when you're young, like, that's the hardest part. What do I want to do? What do I want to, what do I want to be in life? You know, where do I want to make my mark? And that's okay. Like, you know, for some people it takes longer than others, and that's okay. But once you're able to decide that and decipher that, then you're able to apply the necessary steps to take in order to be the very best at it. You know, if that's your ultimate goal, you know, to be the best. And so, so anyway, you know, we get through high school. I go to college, like I mentioned. You know, we go to our first bowl game in 30 years, and it was amazing. But, you know, I hit my first bit of adversity physically my freshman year, right off the bat. I come in as an incoming freshman as a 17-year-old. I didn't turn 18 until that December, right? So I'd be playing my freshman year, or as in college, essentially, as a 17-year-old, you know. And we're in August, it's training camp, and man, I make this routine play on a toss play to the right side, and I'm sprinting towards the pylon, and I remember Kyle Gallagher, who was the middle linebacker at the time, was also a freshman. We came in at the same time. He's chasing me down, you know, and I'm looking and I'm running, you know, and I'm looking, and then finally I just kind of dive into the end zone. Like, I know after a certain time, like, okay, you know, I've got to step on it. You know, I've got to step on it. I'm going to get in. And so, you know, I just go in a dive, you know, I dove in the end zone, touchdown. We're doing a scrimmage. This is training camp. And this is the latter part of it, so we're a little bit later in August. And we're jumping around, we're celebrating, you know. Easy, right? Everything's normal, you know. I go to the sideline, and I'm like, you know, feels kind of weird, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's like just my toe, you know. It's like it's nothing crazy. The next running back, it's his turn, you know. I'm sure by the time it's my turn again, I'll be fine. But for whatever reason, being stagnant, like standing on the sideline, like made it worse. So I'm like, maybe I need to like warm up again or something like that. So it's my turn to get back on the field, and just as the scrimmage was going, this was a long scrimmage now that I think about it. Like, geez, how long were we out there? But I just, it kept getting worse and worse, you know, and like even watching it on film, watching practice on the film after practice, this limp just started getting worse and worse and worse. And so, you know, scrimmage is over. I remember sitting on the sidelines. I'm on the bench. I'm just chilling, high-fiving, hey, great job. And, you know, I take my cleats off because the cleats are like, they're hurting my foot now, you know. I get up, I try to walk. I can't walk. I mean, it even hurts to have a sock on. Even a sock was too much pressure, you know. And so, you know, we're doing all these tests, and we're not finding anything, you know, significant that can explain what's going on. I tried to play. You know, the season starts. You know, we're in week 3 against Wyoming, and we're doing everything. I mean, like, I've got like a bigger cleat on my right foot than my left, and we've got it padded up and taped around, you know, and you know, we're doing everything. And I think back, and I'm like, why we're trying to do this while I'm a 17-year-old freshman, I don't know. I mean, we were acting like we're getting ready for like the Super Bowl or something like that. Like,
it's important.
Yeah, I know I had a lot of potential, but geez, you know. And so, yeah, I remember we ran a power play to the right. I make a sharp cut, really not a sharp cut, but a violent, you know, cut. You know, those holes open and close real quickly, and it was over. I mean, it was just whatever was the little bit that was holding on, it was done.
Yeah,
that was it. You know, and it took a long time to figure out what was up. You know, that was in September, week 3, October essentially goes by, and we don't really get a diagnosis until November. You know, I had to go to Salt Lake City to see a specialist, and he says, you tore the capsule at the bottom of your big toe. There's a ligament there that connects in it. And he goes, and I'm 17, and he goes, listen, you know, my job is to be honest, you know, with my patients. And he says, you know, I can put this back together. You know, I can sew it back together, but yeah, I can't guarantee you're ever going to be able to play football again. You know, this thing has a higher percentage of ripping apart again than staying together, you know, and that just ripped me apart.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as a 17-year-old kid, I said, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to be Barry Sanders. You know, I'm supposed to be Barry Sanders, you know. Yep. I wanted to go to college. I used to tell people in high school, I said, look, I'm going to get a scholarship, I'm going to play for 3 years, and I'm going to go to the league. Boom. And I'm going to be Barry Sanders. Yep. That was like my ultimate goal.
It's the path.
You know, that was it. Yep. And right off the bat, it's like, first of all, not only did I get injured, I've never been hurt before. I thought I was invincible. But you're going to tell me that you don't think I can even play ever again? That's not acceptable, you know? Yeah. Yep. And so I took that, and it crushed me at first, but it inspired me, you know, mostly. And, you know, long story short, you know, here I am, you know, getting ready for year 9 of the NFL, playing pro football. But with anything, especially like in sports, a reaction is so important. And I was able to learn that at a young age. When really great things happen, you win a championship, or you break a record, or you have an amazing catch, or whatever it is, how you respond is the most important thing. That's why coaches, when you're young, they don't really say this too much in pro football, but when you're young, they always say the most important play is the next play. You know, that the last play is already over. Oh, yeah. That's it. Yep. You know, we got more stuff to do. You know,
exactly.
And so how you respond is most important. And it's the same on the other side. When something not so great happens, and you're hit with a little bit of that adversity, the response is the most important thing. And so, you know, I kept my mind on being Barry Sanders, and you know, I think that's important because your mentality is really going to tell the story. You know, it's going to, you know, there's a quote that says, whether you know, think you're good or not, you're right.
Yeah,
You know?
right.
Yeah,
Whatever you
100%.
think,
Yep, I love that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
absolutely.
whatever you think is
Yeah.
is going to be true. And so yeah, I never allow my mind to be like injured, you know?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
my foot was injured.
Yep.
And we had surgery, and I got like super drugged up for the first time, which is a whole nother story for another time. First surgery ever, you know. I was acting pretty weird.
Yeah.
But we got through it. And how did I get through that? And all my other injuries was mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like the mentality that no matter what roadblock is up against me right now, I'm going to surpass it and I'm going to come out better from it.
Yeah.
And that's why after each injury, that was my first one. I tore my ACL a couple years later. I had bilateral hip surgery in 2014. You know, that the surgeries were, I think they were like 15 days apart, you know, which is abnormal. That's
Yeah.
not something
Yeah.
you see. a
Right.
lot.
No.
No.
Mentality is huge.
Even in that year, that hip surgeries were not that was relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
Like the procedures were not all that so arthroscopic, I'm assuming, and that was
Right.
relatively new in the process. That's really awesome to
Yeah.
come back from that and go through that. I think that concept of how you respond, I think, is everything, right? Is when you're faced with challenge, whether it be injury or whatever the challenge is in life. There's some great stuff on that. It's not so much what happens to you, but it's how do you react to it?
Absolutely.
And what is it? What's your perspective, and how do you go on and make improvements from it, or how do you learn from it? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just kind of led you down the path of being exposed to a lot of philosophies, a lot of suggestions from an injury rehab standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been all over the country, and I'm sure you've spoken to a variety of people from around the world.
Yes.
In regards to your rehab process, from the moment you either have surgery or the moment you have your injury to getting back to the field, what has been some of the things that you've found to be, you know, valuable in that time to find the people that are going to be the best resource for you?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I learned really quickly that I didn't understand at first was how much the body is connected. You know, I mentioned tearing my ACL a couple years later. It's like, well, we have to go back and look at your toe surgery in 2007, where naturally you don't have much mobility. I mean, it's healed, but you still don't have as much mobility in the toe, which affects the mobility in
The
essentially
ankle
like the
and
knee,
and the hip.
you know,
and
it
why my
moves
low
up the
back
chain,
hurts. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
All my injuries have been on the right side, you know, starting from like when I did my toe,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just it's weird, you know, how that all connects.
Did you do your own? So listening to a variety of different people, obviously you kind of took in a lot of information and learned as much as just listening to them. You vet your own information, right? And so understanding, you started picking people that almost started saying the same thing, and I'm sure that influenced like who you maybe started to trust or who you started to kind of follow to get you back to the way you wanted to be for your competition, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate to work with some really intelligent people who have just a really distinct understanding of what the body is and how it works and how everything connects. And it's like, I don't know, for me it's like if you want to be great at something, if you want to be the absolute best at something, you know, you'll take the time to really educate yourself on everything that's involved. So for me, you know, like playing ball, being an athlete, the most important thing for me to understand outside of like X's and O's and is your body. Like what makes you function, like how it functions out there. Like how can I perform at my very best, at the highest level? It's not always about like, oh, I got to be the man in front of me. Like obviously that's a part of it, but how do I even get there? Like how do I prepare myself to even be in that moment, to have the confidence in that moment? You know, where do you get your confidence? When your confidence comes from like hard work and knowing like yourself and your body and how it operates.
Yep, exploring yourself, explore who you are.
That's how you get to like, that's how players have like a go-to move.
Yep.
And it's just, it's the same, but it always works.
Yeah.
It's the same move, but it always, because they're so in tune with their body, they know how to use it. They know how to make that same move work every time. So how do you get beat by that? Well, he works on that, you know, or she works on that. You know,
they know exactly when to use it.
Yeah.
Exactly when they see a few things line up, boom, now's the time. It's perfect that.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so you start to learn like all of these intricate things that play into that, like prehab. Like, well, what is that? Well, this is a way to prevent injuries. These are injury prevention exercises that you can do. You know, how do you decide like what prehab exercises I should do? Well, that comes from evaluation of the body. Are you stiff anywhere? Where perhaps are you less mobile at? Because mobility is huge, right? Some stiffness is important as well for like, you know, speed and
for your position as well.
Other things, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to understand those things is you know, huge. It's hugely important. Understanding that, like, you know, everything comes from the core. It's the center of gravity in your body. And so regardless of how strong your shoulders are or your calves or whatever, if this is weak in here, if it's not tight, those things won't function the way that they should. You know, understanding that, you know, I thought like your quads had to be really strong when I was young. You know, it's like, well, really, the most important muscle as far as your lower body are the glutes, right? That go along with the core, right? That you know, that helps you really function everything.
It just drives it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the driver.
Yeah. You know, as you start to get older, you start to feel, you know, more things, and if it matters to you, you want to understand why you're feeling that. There's always a reason. Sometimes it's just like, it could be you're getting older. Sometimes it's a result of prior injuries and stuff like that. But, you know, some of us, you know, we take these aches and things like that, and we just kind of, we just ignore it, you know.
Right. Not
Not understanding that, well, you know, your knee could be hurting because of what you're eating during the day. Well, what? What do you mean? Like, that doesn't have to do that doesn't have anything to do with like physical, like, feeling. You know, I'm just eating
not
food,
mechanical. Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
But it's important to know that, because like you may be eating something that causes an inflammatory reaction in your body and you don't even know it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
You may not be allergic to it, but that's how your body responds.
Yeah.
You know, to like, I don't know, maybe it's bread or something like that, which
Yep.
is an inflammatory type of food, you know. And so you get to a point where you really want to understand those things, you know. And it's like, you know, injuries suck, but I'm grateful for my experience with injuries and surgery because of the knowledge I've been able to build from it. Like, wow, like, you know, I can really transform my body, you know, by not even really exercising, you know. Like nutrition is really like the key to longevity.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Put a good fuel inside the Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know? Can't
Yeah.
just be sludge.
yeah. You know, you hear this term, work smarter, not harder, right? And when you're young, you're like, you don't even really know what that means, really. You know, it's like, what is that? What does that mean? You know, but it's getting to know yourself as best you can, like internally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
wisdom from a veteran, you know, to the healthy younger athletes out there that are quite invincible, you know, at least in their own mind. And certainly they heal like superheroes, but they can take steps now to, put themselves in the best possible position, to maximize their potential or whatever it is. But if you had to give those individuals something to kind of take away from your own experiences, if you haven't already summed it up so far, it would be some some key things like, this is what I wish I would have done, having hindsight when I was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old developing my body.
Yeah. Well, I would say, these kids now in a lot of areas are really lucky because, there's so many gyms, there's so many opportunities to train and be around other kids that weren't there when I was young. I remember going up to my PE teachers and asking them like, hey, I want to get faster. Is there anything that I can do? Do you know any exercises that I can do to help my speed?
Yep.
And they typed something up, printed it out. I take my dog to the park at night and do those exercises on my own. So they're really lucky to have like a gym like this, and things like that. But I wish I would have had an opportunity. Like, I want to say nutrition, but that's so hard when you're
You wouldn't have listened.
16 and 17, 19 and 20.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But here's the thing that I've always felt was really important is whenever you're trying to accomplish something, and you want to be like the best at it, the most important work that you can put into it is the work that you're doing when nobody's looking, when nobody's watching you, when you're quote unquote not supposed to be at the gym, or you're not supposed to be studying. It's important.
Have you seen that Phelps commercial? I thought it was just phenomenal. Michael Phelps is an Under Armour commercial that he did, and it shows him training and swimming at night in the dark and everything. And basically, the tagline at the end is, "It's what you do in the dark that puts you into the light." And then it shows him with all the medals and everything. It's a phenomenal commercial. If you haven't checked it out, check it out on YouTube. I think it puts some visual to that story because that's exactly it.
And that's exactly what I mean. By that, and it really makes a difference. Just a little bit every day separates you. That's what separates the good, from the great. A lot of times when we're young, we're like, oh, we got practice. It's from this time to this time, and that's what we do. We do the practice and we do what we're supposed to do. Then we go home, we play video games, we do whatever. But
just doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, but if you take an extra half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is, and put in an extra, it really gives you an advantage. It really separates you. That's where I felt separated me the most.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I think that translates too. I know I've read some great stuff on leadership and on business, and it's they talk about that with success in business, and like a CEO mindset is in a similar category of, if you were to the CEO or the executive leaders that achieve these high levels of performance are found that their ability to stay disciplined and do the things that they don't want. They know they don't want to do it, but they have the discipline still to do the things they don't want to do when no one is looking or in the backside, to get those things done and out of the way. And then discipline to continue that is what allows them to continue to be successful. And I think that's what you're speaking to, is this idea of working hard and staying. You've had tremendous focus for so long. I think you said that several times in your story, which was so tremendous. And that clear focus of what I want to accomplish, be Barry Sanders. Yeah.
Right.
And then the fortitude to stay with it and be like, hey, this, and the impact that it had emotionally on several of those times, where what team do I play for? Who do I go? What college do I go to? And then when I get injured. Every single time you spoke, how that hit you. And I think that clear focus and then disciplined action to follow up.
100%.
To get there is, I think the message is to take away that if you're out there and you're gray and I don't really know what I want to do or where I'm going or what we're trying to accomplish, then you're probably not going to get anywhere. But as you make those decisions more clear, as we were talking about before, that's what really starts to allow you to separate and then stay disciplined to it.
Yeah, the meat and potatoes of just like the body in general And I was really fortunate. I met a young lady, her name is Michelle Lovett. She's my dietitian, even now. And I met her after I had my bilateral hip surgery. She goes, "How do you eat?" And she asked me. I was like, "Well, I eat Chipotle like every day."
It's got veggies, man. It's all good.
It's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And she was, and she explained to me. She's like, you should. I'm like, well, I've always wanted to be on a specific diet or nutrition plan, but I don't know where to start. And like, I eat some healthy things, and that's what most people do. They pick up a book or they get on the internet and like, oh, this is healthy, that is healthy. And that's true. There are certain things that are healthy. Fruits generally are healthy, and vegetables. But are they healthy for you? Mm-hmm. That's really the important part.
Yep, absolutely.
What do you mean by that? Well, when I met Michelle, she's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to test your body. We're going to test it to see where your vitamin level's at. Vitamin A, B, C, D, where's your cortisol levels, and all of these other things that I had no idea. I'm like, what? Cortisol? What is that? What are these things?
What are you talking about?
But they matter. How do you feel? Do you feel tired in the morning? Do you recover well after a workout? You might have a great workout, but it's like you're sore for 2 days. You can't understand why. For me, I really struggled with recovery. Like, what? I get in the cold tub after practice, or the sauna. I get my massages. I still feel like crap.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? My vitamin D levels are low. Vitamin D is huge for the recovery process in your body. Mm-hmm. How do I would never know that if I didn't test my body out.
Sure.
It's a huge essential part of nutrition because, it allows you to really be specific to you. Like, carrots are healthy, but I can't eat carrots because I have an intolerance to it right now. Then you learn, like, your body consistently changes. So, I may have an intolerance to carrots right now, and 6 months later, that could go away.
Sure.
Yeah. But having those specifics is really important in determining, like, what intake, what kind of intake you're putting in your body. One of the things when I got to the pro level that I would hear a lot is that guy right there is, he's really careful about what he puts in his body. Mm-hmm. That person, he's really careful. But what do you mean? Well, they've gotten to a point where they understand, they understand, like, what foods, what kind of proteins, mm-hmm. What kind of fruits actually are best fit for them. Sure. And not just eating them because they're generally healthy. It's healthy for them.
Right.
And so I would encourage, people out there, young, old, or whatever, is get your body tested. Schedule it, every quarter of the year. Learn about your body, see how it changed. I couldn't believe. I was like, wow, last year, these results were totally different. Yeah. Then you start to see the improvements. Like, my vitamin D level was like in the low 30s. When I first did the test, that was like horrible. Like death. Like,
haven't seen the
she's
been in the film
like, oh my
all week.
God, how are you even performing? And then you start to see it at 60, and all these things, right? Supplementation and everything like that, just in an intelligent way. But a lot of people take like multivitamins and stuff. Well, you might be taking a vitamin that you don't even really need, and too much of anything is bad for you. So get specific. Yeah. Like, specifics are really important in taking care of your body. You feel a certain way, you're feeling something. Why is that? Is it physical? I have to admit, like, most of the time it's not. Mm-hmm. Most of the time it's internal, it's nutritional. Mm-hmm. But you won't know that unless you test your body, blood test, swab test, whatever is the most detailed test that you can get. Mm-hmm. And that'll propel you really forward. I mean, like, when I started getting my nutrition right, I always felt, I was like, dude, I feel 4 years younger. Like, when you're doing it on a consistent basis, it's like, wow. Like, it was the most, like, shocking thing I couldn't believe how much nutrition and the specifics of it really made a difference in not only how I felt, but in my performance as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it's great. It's something you hear all the time, for people like, oh, nutrition is probably 90%, and then et cetera. And everybody's like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
But it's so true at these elite levels of performance, and when you're at this level in the league, and you're going against the best people in the world, you start to sense like what does it take to get that edge. And then in your case, you had a surgery, and you kind of met her, and that guided you down that process, but. It's really tremendous when you look at elite performance and the impact that nutrition has, and you spoke about recovery, and we talk a lot about the impact nutrition has on recovery and how those two things are so closely tied. And to be at the conversation for the last 5 to 6 years right now in elite performance has been about ability to recover, whereas probably 10 to 20 years ago, the conversation was about train harder. What are you doing for training? What are you doing for strength conditioning? And all of these things. And that conversation is shifted tremendously to like, what are you doing to recover now? And part of that's because we know what to do to train. Like we've learned that, and people, it's not easy, but there's a path of we know what to do. But in a similar fashion, as you said, for nutrition, there's a certain type of strength training that's right for different people. Like we happen to be on the same bicep program, and what you're doing clearly is working, and what I'm doing is it's the same one.
These things are just stuck now. I don't even have to really even lift anymore.
So clearly,
to maintain this.
Clearly you have to be specific to what works for you.
You were my inspiration when I started coming to this facility. I always say like with recovery, with rehab, really, it falls into like 2 categories, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, working with a lot of people doing rehab and recovering from surgeries, but I think after you have surgery, there is a recovery stage. I think you can get to a point where your body's recovered. I tore my ACL. 8 months later, I was recovered. But I think the next stage after that is the healing process. I think it takes another 8 months or so,
round of it, really.
For your body to actually say, now I'm totally,
I trust,
so to speak, I'm healed. And I was fortunate because when I tore my ACL, I didn't have to play that following season. I had the choice. You can play. We're going to recommend that you wear a brace, but you're recovered enough to play. I just didn't like it. It didn't fit. First of all, I'm not going out there with a brace on. It looks ugly. There's no swag in that.
Well, you can't run in that thing.
No.
Can't be myself.
No.
I wanted to get to a point where I could fully be me, and that was to sit out the year and allow my knee to totally heal. And I feel it was that way. I mean, you can come back and recover and still perform great, but most people that have surgeries, they always say, I felt better the second year than I did the first.
So true. There's quite a bit of research on that too. I mean, I don't know if you know about it. The science side of the world is always researching the pro athletes, and you're probably in that study as far as how the athlete felt at the 2-year mark compared to at the 1-year mark, and it is exactly that they felt normal or recovered at that point, whereas at 1 year they're like, it's still not quite right, still unproven. So I think it's an interesting perspective to hear you say it that way, that to feel healed, by that second season, 16 to 24 month mark, and it's so true. We see some anomalies that may be different than that, but for the most part, that's often the case.
That's kind of how I've always felt about it, and I feel the same way with recovery that I do training. When I talk about what are you doing when nobody's looking out, obviously, like recovery is such a strategic process as well. You want to be careful. You don't want to do too much too early, but when I was recovering from bilateral hip surgery, I was at the Exos facility in San Diego, and I was there from like 8 o'clock in the morning to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, doing something, whether it was a Normatec for an hour or just riding the bike slowly, not doing too much too fast, but it was like I wanted to spend as much time on my body there, whatever it was stretching, anything for me to recover, and not only recover, but to heal and to be able to perform at a higher level. My goal was always to come back better than I was before. And so I think in the recovery process, just as much as training, it's important to have that mindset of like, how much more can I do without doing too much? Because you don't want to do too much in training either.
No.
You want to overtrain,
Right.
Because you start to get on this decline,
Yeah.
right? You just start doing too much, right?
Yep.
So you want to train smart, you want to rehab smart, but you also want to still be in that mindset of like, what is the, how can I maximize what I can do
Yeah.
to heal?
No, yeah.
I think it's just as important when it's training,
Yeah. 100%.
We've covered so many topics today. You're like
Sorry, I talk a lot.
You're like a book of knowledge. We could have like a series on you.
Hope you guys aren't getting bored with me, man.
No.
You
It's just tremendous amounts of value, I think, for the listeners, and one from your grit to your intense focus to kind of your experiences and how you've responded to the adversities you've faced, I think is tremendous for people to kind of wrap their brains around. And then some of these things that I really do wish, if you're a younger viewer and you do aspire to be an athlete of some level, take that advice and run with it to like do things before they happen. Don't be reactive in your life. Be proactive as best you can. And the amount of resources we have now is insane. So
Yeah. Pick a goal. You have a dream. Pick a dream. People said I'll never forget I think she was my history teacher, but she was we were doing this project in high school, and she was like, everybody, you got to pick a career, and then we had to like budget our finances, and then pay for different things. That was like the project, and I said, well, I'm going to be a pro football player, so this is going to be pretty easy for me.
no budgeting involved.
Right? And I was serious. I'm like, everybody, all my friends, like they know, like this is you're not gonna tell somebody who was aspiring to be like a doctor or something like that like, she told me that I needed to be more realistic about what I wanted to do in life, and I'm just like, what? Then people start thinking, well, only 1% of all high school athletes make it to the pros, and it's even less in college or whatever, and regardless of that, it comes down to you, the individual.
Yeah.
What do you believe? Mm-hmm. And I tell the kids at my camp, I said, listen, whatever your goal is, whatever your dream is, first of all, you have to identify that. Okay. Once you identify that, I think the next step, even before applying like the work ethic, is that you have to believe that it's attainable. You can have a dream. I want to be the president. But if you only like kind of halfway believe it, it's like, essentially you're probably right, both sides of it,
So true.
It's going to be harder to attain that goal. But if you really believe it, it's just like, I know this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is my destiny. Like, then that third part comes into effect where you can like really like hone in and work hard and take all of the necessary, steps to do it. And I tell my kids at my camps and stuff like that, like, don't let anybody like dictate what your future is going to be, what's attainable and what's not. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. You just gotta really believe it and allow it to manifest. That's hugely important.
Yeah.
It's hugely important.
So I love that quote that you shared earlier that we were talking. I think it's a Ben Franklin quote of whether you think you're right or you're wrong.
There it is.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether you think you're right or you're wrong, you're right.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I appreciate having you, man. This is awesome. We're gonna share we'll share some stuff on our site and on the blog and such, so you can reach you can see Rob, you can follow him through his Instagram and such, and then also his foundation, the stuff that he does for the community is really tremendous to really I think to give back to the youth and other developments in the community is pretty awesome too. So
100%.
I know you got some cool stuff. You're always shooting some awesome video and telling your story. So it's great to see.
Yeah, no, giving back is important. I wouldn't be here without the communities that I've been a part of. Mm-hmm. And, when I was growing up, there weren't any pros around. When I went to Utah State, people used to always say, the guys that go on and play pro football, they never come back here. I heard that ever since I was a freshman, ever since I was 17, I would hear that, like, all these guys, and it wasn't a whole lot, but it was like the few that, they'd never come back. Only one guy, he was a corner for the Packers for 9 seasons, Jarrett Bush. He'd come back and he'd actually go one-on-one against us. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I remember those moments. I remember like winning on some of those routes and really feeling good about myself. Like I just beat a pro,
Yeah.
And I mean, but think about what that does to the mindset of a college. That's why, like for me, like even now, like on Saturdays, we do our 7-on-7, and I'm going against the high school kids. Some of those guys are in JC. I don't know what they're thinking necessarily, but I know that they're really competitive and they're embracing the opportunity to go up against a pro. I would if I was 16 or whatever, and I'd be trying to shut this fool down too. Like I'm trying to show this fool, like I'm 16, but I'm raw. I'm good, I'm about to show you, So it means a lot. It means a lot to me. I'm like, man, you know what? I want to be able to bring something to this community that hasn't been brought here before, and so that's why I spend so much time in the community and do the charity stuff. It's big time.
It's huge. Well, I appreciate it. What you've done for this region, and coming to the Sacramento area. I know from the Bay, and you spend a lot of time there and do a lot for that community. And this one that you live in now, and the Utah State region. I hear about you in those areas all the time as we talk. So it's so cool. It's a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you stay busy with that. So that's awesome.
Seriously.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
COVID is
it's its own
ruined
thing.
everything.
Yeah.
We just had a meeting today because my basketball event is supposed to be in March. It got canceled this year. It's canceled for next year. So now we're trying to figure out something else we can do.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It's so challenging to I mean, one of always our goals as people is to unite and have and help and improve others' lives. It's certainly what we're all about here, and it's certainly challenging to do when you're not allowed to be around each other.
Yeah. Right.
Makes it a little tricky.
Tough. Yeah.
So certainly creative ways, but
so.
But thank you again, Rob.
Yeah.
It's been awesome talking to you. I think we have to have
appreciate
you back to talk about some more stuff. So
whatever, man. I'm anytime.
Yeah.
I love doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You guys can come on my podcast,
Yeah.
perhaps, and you can share some of your experiences and perspectives on, the injuries and recovery. And I know you're a big time basketball player up at Arizona.
Oh yeah, big time.
Big time baseball player.
Really?
And so. I like hearing stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
We can teach you a few things.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm always learning.
All right. Thank you all for watching KIMEcast. We'll catch you on the next one. This was KIMEcast, and we are the Kime Human Performance Institute. Thank you very much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please hop on our social media. It's at KIMEHPI and engage with us there. If you'd like us to feature a topic or answer any questions live on the show, post your comments there. You can also check us out on our website at kimeperformance.com, and there you can see links to content that we've posted throughout our podcast for more information.